Welcome to Pod WeCast, film fanatics and pop culture pundits, to Hollywood reboots and sequels. Is originality dead? I'm Max, and joining me, as always, is the brilliant Jennifer. And don't forget to tell us how we look in our costumes.
Thanks, Max. It's great to be here. And what a topic we've got today. If you've scrolled through any streaming platform or checked cinema listings recently, you've probably felt a distinct sense of déjà vu. It seems like every other big release is a sequel, a remake, or reboot of something we've already seen. The numbers certainly back this up. The majority of 2024's highest-grossing films worldwide, like Inside Out 2, Deadpool and Wolverine, and Dune Part 2, were all sequels, remakes, or reboots. This trend has been embraced by Hollywood for years, leading many to ask if the industry is simply running on fumes, creatively speaking.
It's a sentiment that echoes across social media and conversations everywhere, Jennifer. There's a widespread feeling that Hollywood is creatively exhausted, resorting to what some call a recycling culture that's symptomatic of a commercial risk aversion. It really feels like original ideas are taking a back seat. However, what's fascinating is that while this perception of dwindling originality is strong, the raw data presents a slightly different picture. Between 2020 and 2024, only about 12% of new shows and movies were actually based on pre-existing intellectual property. This suggests that the industry is still producing a fair volume of new content.
That's the crucial distinction, Max. The feeling that originality is dying isn't necessarily because there's a complete absence of new ideas being produced. Instead, it appears to stem from the disproportionate commercial success and sheer market visibility of content based on existing intellectual property. When one examines the top-ranked titles, IP-based content is heavily overrepresented. For instance, 70 to 80% of the top 100 movies each year and 40 to 50% of the top 100 TV shows are based on pre-existing IP. This indicates that these familiar properties punch far above their weight commercially. The public's memory tends to be dominated by these big, familiar blockbusters, a phenomenon sometimes referred to as availability bias. So the core issue might be less about the volume of new IP being created and more about how much existing IP dominates the box office and our collective attention. This sets the stage for a much more nuanced discussion than simply declaring originality dead.
Before we dive deeper into the economics and creative implications, Jennifer, it feels like these terms reboot, remake, and sequel get thrown around interchangeably, often adding to the confusion. Can you help us untangle them? What exactly are we talking about when we discuss Hollywood's reliance on familiar territory?
Absolutely, Max. It's vital to establish a clear understanding because while they all involve revisiting existing material, their approaches and intentions can significantly differ. A reboot is essentially a fresh start for a franchise. It intentionally disregards previous storylines and continuity, offering a new take on the original. The aim is to rejuvenate interest, update outdated elements, and attract new audiences by revitalizing beloved stories. A prime example is The Amazing Spider-Man 2012, which rebooted the Spider-Man universe and then was reinvented again with Tom Holland's Spider-Man Homecoming 2017. Another interesting case is Creed 2015, which shares elements with the Rocky franchise but moves in a different direction, potentially evolving into a fully realized reboot by Creed 3.
So it's not just a new coat of paint, but a whole new foundation, so to speak.
Precisely. Then we have a remake. This is a film that repurposes most of the same events, characters, and plot points from an earlier film. A remake can be almost identical to its predecessor, like the 1998 Psycho, which was a shot-for-shot remake. However, remakes don't have to be slavishly devoted. They can examine a story through a new lens, and sometimes even character names and settings might differ from the original. A sequel, on the other hand, is a straightforward continuation of a franchise, typically featuring the same characters and narrative, picking up where the previous film left off. If a movie has a number after its title, it's almost certainly a sequel, like The Empire Strikes Back, 1980.
And what about those films that seem to bridge the gap? We hear terms like legacy sequel or reimagining.
A legacy sequel picks up years after the original story, honoring the old continuity while bringing in fresh faces. Think Top Gun Maverick, arriving 36 years later, but still feeling connected. A reimagining is like a remake's adventurous cousin. It keeps only the core plot or theme and overhauls everything else. Imagine turning animated The Lion King into the 2019 live-action spectacle. These labels can blur. Studios sometimes call a film a soft reboot, rebootquel, or even sneak in a stealth prequel like The Thing 2011, masquerading as a remake until you realize it sets up the original. That ambiguity is strategic. It lets studios tap nostalgia for longtime fans while pitching something new to first-timers. If audiences don't love it, they blame the remake instead of an original idea. If it succeeds, it's hailed as a fresh take that reinvigorated a classic. To keep these straight, here's a quick spoken glossary. Reboot restarts a franchise from zero, ignoring past storylines. The Amazing Spider-Man, Creed. Remake retells a known story, sometimes scene for scene, sometimes with new twists. Psycho 1998, King Kong 2005. Sequel continues the exact narrative and characters. The Empire Strikes Back. Legacy sequel picks up years after the original story. Top Gun Maverick. Reimagining, major overhaul, only theme or premise stays The Lion King 2019. Spin-off focuses on a side character or element in its own story. Creed. Prequel shows events that happened before the original. The Thing 2011.
So now that we've untangled the terminology, Max, the big question remains, why are studios so keen on these reiterations? It boils down to one thing: money. At its core, Hollywood is a business, and the financial incentives for revisiting existing IP are incredibly compelling.
That's right, Jennifer. It's all about financial security and mitigating risk. Established franchises, whether through sequels or remakes, arrive with built-in fan bases and instant recognition. This familiarity often translates directly into box office success because audiences are more likely to pay for something they already know and love. Studios see these past hits as easy financial wins for the future. This inherent recognition also significantly reduces the marketing burden. It's far easier and cheaper to promote a sequel to a famous film or a remake of a beloved classic than to build awareness for an entirely new concept from scratch.
This leads directly to a pervasive risk aversion within the industry. Original ideas are viewed as inherently riskier investments, especially for big-budget films. The fear of pouring significant resources into projects that might not resonate with audiences or fail to achieve box office success pushes executives to gravitate towards recycled, familiar formulas. This risk-averse mindset, driven by the pressure to deliver profits to shareholders, perpetuates the cycle of reboots and remakes.
Beyond the pure financial calculus, there's the incredibly potent nostalgia factor. Nostalgia is a powerful driver of consumer behavior. It taps into our emotional connections and cherished memories, encouraging viewers to revisit updated versions of stories they hold dear. This isn't just about older audiences. Remakes and sequels often appeal to multiple generations. Parents might introduce their children to modernized versions of movies they love, creating a cycle of generational viewing and shared experience.
And it's more than just a trip down memory lane. Relishing the comfort of familiar characters, visuals, and tropes offers a temporary escape from a often crushing reality. Audiences are, in a way, chasing after a feeling of youth and simpler times. This deep emotional engagement translates directly into commercial success, as nostalgia-driven films and TV shows consistently perform well at the box office and on streaming platforms.
The strategy also extends beyond the initial release with significant franchise potential and merchandising opportunities. Sequels and remakes open doors for expanded revenue streams through merchandise, from toys and video games to theme park attractions. Beyond individual films, studios can build entire cinematic universes around successful franchises, like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU, generating long-term profitability through interconnected stories and spin-offs. The film becomes just one component of a larger multi-platform revenue strategy.
Let's not forget the global market appeal and streaming demands. Global audiences are more likely to watch something they recognize, and Hollywood studios rely heavily on international markets where well-known titles consistently perform better. With the explosion of streaming platforms, the demand for content has skyrocketed. Studios find filling these platforms with remakes and sequels safer and more efficient, knowing they have a built-in audience. Familiar titles attract and retain subscribers, and sequel-based franchises are ideally suited for binge watching, keeping audiences engaged over extended periods.
This brings us to a significant observation: the safe bet illusion and its potential long-term cost. Studios consistently greenlight reboots and sequels because they are perceived as safer bets and easy financial wins. This decision-making is explicitly driven by commercial viability and risk mitigation. While this strategy might seem rational for short-term gains, there are strong indications of significant long-term risks.
Indeed, Max. Some experts warn of a potential implosion of the industry if Hollywood continues to overinvest in what is termed pure exploitation, that is, relying solely on existing IP, and sacrifices creativity or exploration. This over-reliance is directly linked to creative stagnation, with the evocative statement that imagination is slowly suffocating under the unbearable weight of too many soulless remakes. Furthermore, an excessive focus on nostalgic content carries the danger of genre saturation and viewer fatigue. This creates a situation where the intellectual property system, originally designed to incentivize new creation, is now predominantly used to exploit existing works, potentially hindering the development of truly novel ideas.
So, the immediate financial security, derived from leveraging existing IP, thanks to built-in audiences, reduced marketing costs, and the powerful pull of nostalgia, appears to lead directly to a systemic tendency towards long-term creative stagnation and the very real risk of audience fatigue. This isn't just about individual film choices. It represents a fundamental systemic issue within the Hollywood business model. The industry risks transforming into a risk-averse machine that prioritizes imitative design over innovative design. The immense box office success of a few major IP films like Inside Out 2 can create a misleading impression of overall health, potentially masking the underlying problem of a diminishing creative pipeline and a future crisis of originality. It's almost like they're eating their seed corn.
The creative conundrum: is the well running dry?
That brings us to the heart of the matter, Jennifer. If it's all about money, what does this mean for the artists, the screenwriters, and the directors? Is Hollywood running out of ideas, or are new ideas not getting a fair shot?
It's a critical question, Max. Many critics and observers argue that Hollywood's overwhelming reliance on reboots and sequels leads to creative stagnation, leaving little room for new and original stories to be made. The pervasive sentiment is that imagination is slowly suffocating under the unbearable weight of too many soulless remakes. Furthermore, studios consistently choose to put their money into the safe hands of a sequel rather than taking a risk with an original story. This ingrained risk-averse mindset is a powerful force that perpetuates the cycle of reboots and remakes. It's essentially a contemporary recycling culture that is symptomatic of Hollywood's recent creative exhaustion and commercial risk aversion.
And this has a profound impact on screenwriters and directors. When studios pour vast resources into reboots, they are by definition diverting attention away from new, original projects. There are countless talented filmmakers with fresh ideas, but those voices can easily get drowned out when Hollywood plays it safe with familiar IPs. It becomes significantly harder for original screenplays to get greenlit because studios prefer the perceived financial security of IP-based projects. Even securing distribution deals for original content is more challenging without the built-in marketing advantages of a well-known IP.
A relatively new yet increasingly influential factor in this equation is the role of AI and algorithms. Streaming platforms now use AI algorithms to analyze consumer data and predict which types of productions are most likely to succeed. This practice influences creative decisions even before the writing process begins, effectively reducing the autonomy of creators and shifting the priority towards maximizing commercial return rather than fostering artistic originality. Filmmakers can feel compelled to compromise their creative vision to meet market demands for universal themes and spectacles that appeal to a broad global audience. This creates what can be described as an IP trap, which has a systemic impact on creative careers and the future of storytelling. Studios overwhelmingly favor IP due to its perceived financial security and lower risk. This preference directly leads to resources being diverted from new original projects. This in turn creates a significant bottleneck for aspiring screenwriters and directors with original ideas because their voices can get drowned out. It becomes harder for original screenplays to get greenlit and to secure distribution without the built-in marketing of known IP.
The advent of AI and the increasing reliance on algorithmic content curation further tightens this IP trap. AI algorithms predict what's likely to succeed based on past data, which, as we've discussed, heavily favors IP. This influences creative decisions before writing even begins, reducing creator autonomy and shifting priority towards maximizing commercial return. Moreover, AI offers significant cost reduction in production, making exploiting existing IP even more financially attractive for studios.
This isn't just about the fate of individual scripts. It impacts the entire talent pipeline. If new writers and directors aren't given opportunities to develop their craft on original projects or mentorship in robust writers' rooms diminishes, the long-term supply of future original IP is severely jeopardized. The industry risks cannibalizing its past and failing to invest in nurturing new talent, leading to a potential slow-motion collapse of its creative core. The current model, while profitable in the short term, may be unsustainable, as today's originals are meant to become tomorrow's reliable IP franchises. It's a real catch-22. The industry wants safe bets, which are IP. But if there isn't an active investment in original ideas and nurturing new talent, where will the next generation of beloved, bankable IPs come from? It's a self-defeating prophecy if this isn't addressed strategically.
And AI is only accelerating this. It's not just about whether an AI can write a script, but how AI influences the types of scripts that get greenlit in the first place, potentially pushing us further into this IP-only mindset. The disruptive potential of AI is immense. New sophisticated forms of AI can challenge the fundamental premise that only humans can create. AI is smashing IP boundaries and raising existential questions for artists. Studios are investing heavily in AI to reduce production costs, potentially allowing tasks that once required armies of artists, writers, and directors to be done by machines in minutes. This could lead to fewer human jobs.
This raises serious ethical questions regarding intellectual property, consent, and fair compensation for artists. The recent Writers Guild of America and SAG-AFTRA strikes specifically addressed these concerns, securing provisions that AI-generated scripts cannot replace human screenwriters and that digitized images and voices require explicit consent and fair compensation. AI is not a fleeting trend, but a fundamental technological shift that will profoundly reshape the industry's creative processes, economic models, and the very definition of authorship.
The audience's vote. Are we complicit? We've talked about what drives the studios and the impact on creators, but let's be honest, Jennifer. We, the audience, play a massive role in this. Are we perpetuating reboot fever?
It's a fair question, Max. Audiences often display a strong preference for something familiar over something entirely new. People are hooked on nostalgia and find comfort in familiar characters, visuals, and tropes. There's a psychological phenomenon known as the mere exposure effect, which suggests that audiences are more likely to engage with content they're already familiar with.
And that comfort is powerful. Relishing in familiar stories offers a temporary escape from an often crushing reality.
People might be chasing after a world that never was, or going to see sequels and remakes to feel how they felt when they saw the original, seeking a feeling of youth and simpler times.
This leads to what's been termed nostalgia baiting. There's a direct relationship where movie studios depend on money and nostalgia brings them money. However, this strategy isn't without its risks. An over-reliance on nostalgic content can lead to genre saturation and viewer fatigue. Audiences might become tired of seeing the same recycled concepts and yearn for more original stories. Despite financial success, some reboots and sequels received significant negative feedback from longtime fans, such as Scream 6 or the Velma animated series, which was heavily criticized for character redesigns and plot.
It's an interesting contradiction. While our viewing habits often lean towards the familiar, data from Blacklist indicates that 91% of the public prefer the original film over the remake. And original movies reportedly have 79% more profitability than their remakes. This suggests a significant say-do gap in audience behavior. While people claim to prefer originality, their consumption habits often lean heavily towards familiarity.
This discrepancy can be attributed to several factors. IP films benefit from massive marketing budgets, making them far more visible and accessible to the general public. Engaging with something entirely new requires more cognitive effort and a leap of faith from the audience. Familiarity offers a comfortable, low-risk viewing experience. Additionally, seeing a popular IP film is often a shared cultural event, fostering intergenerational bonds and collective memory. This communal aspect can be a stronger pull for many viewers than the individual artistic merit of an unknown original film. While original films can be more profitable when they hit big, IP films tend to have higher floors. They might not be masterpieces, but they are less likely to be catastrophic financial flops than a completely unknown original, offering a more predictable return.
So the unvarnished truth is that the entertainment industry gives people what they want. Audiences vote with their wallets. Big-budget studios pumping huge ad dollars into popular IP heavily shape what we see, and theater owners admit it's nearly impossible to promote new stories in a fragmented media landscape. Familiar franchises become the safer bet. It's a feedback loop. Audience demand informs studio strategy, driving exposure and further demand. In other words, Hollywood isn't just dictating content. It's responding to our deeply ingrained preferences, even when those preferences contradict what we say we want. Now, here's a quick snapshot of how IP-based films and original films have performed, both with critics and audiences. Audience preference. 91% say they prefer original films over remakes. Profitability. Originals deliver about 79% more profit than remakes. Successful reboots or sequels. When executed well, films like Top Gun Maverick, the Dune series, the Planet of the Apes trilogy, A Star is Born, the Batman and Spider-Man reboots, The Mandalorian, Wednesday, and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish all won both acclaim and box office success. Failed reboots or sequels? On the flip side, titles such as the 1998 Psycho, Ghostbusters 2016, The Mummy 2017, Ben-Hur 2016, Blade Runner 2049, critically loved but box office shy, Men in Black International, Ocean's 8, Fantastic Beasts, and Velma faced backlash or poor returns. Hit originals. Lower budget originals like Past Lives, The Holdovers, Anatomy of a Fall, The Substance, Challengers, Everything Everywhere All at Once, John Wick, The White Lotus, Avatar, Inception, Gravity, Get Out, Nope, Elemental, and Migration saw both critical praise and solid profits. Originals that flopped? Even fresh ideas can bomb. Examples include Speed Racer, Mortal Engines, Pan, Jupiter Ascending, Strange World, Moonfall, Joker Folie à Deux, Hellboy 2019, Mulan 2020, The Goldfinch, Haunted Mansion 2023, Argylle, Fly Me to the Moon, and Megalopolis.
Max, it's easy to get cynical listening to all this, but it's not all doom and gloom. Originality hasn't completely vanished from Hollywood. There's still places where it thrives, and even reboots can sometimes surprise us with their fresh perspectives.
You're absolutely right, Jennifer. Many original films continue to receive significant critical acclaim. We've seen incredible works like Past Lives, The Holdovers, Anatomy of a Fall, The Substance, and Challengers garner widespread praise. While these might not always top the overall box office charts, original movies can be financially successful, especially when made on smaller budgets. For instance, Challengers made nearly $100 million on a $50 million budget, and Civil War brought in $125 million on a similar budget. Sorry.
And independent studios like A24 are proving that creativity can shine through and succeed. 9 out of 10 of their highest-grossing films at the domestic box office are original screenplays, with Everything Everywhere All at Once being a prime example. Other successful originals like Get Out, Nope, Elemental, and Migration also demonstrate that new concepts can break through. The industry is, after all, cyclical. The original gambles of today can become the reliable IP franchises of tomorrow. Think of films like John Wick or TV series like The White Lotus, which started as fresh ideas and became valuable intellectual properties in their own right.
It's not just about completely new stories, though. Even reboots can offer new perspectives and innovation. While many are criticized as lazy cash grabs or for leading to monotonous viewing experiences, a significant number are praised for offering new layers, new voices, and new perspectives. A truly successful reboot isn't merely repeating the old story, it's about recontextualizing it, updating its themes for a contemporary audience, or exploring characters and narratives in previously unexamined ways.
Exactly. Take the Planet of the Apes trilogy, 2011 plus, which told a much more personal and deep of a story than its predecessors, or A Star is Born 2018, which successfully modernized a classic and brought it into the mainstream. Even the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reboot was noted for updating the show by tackling relevant social issues. This phenomenon highlights a core concept in adaptation theory: repetition with differentiation. These successful reboots leverage the established brand recognition and emotional connection of the original, but critically add a fresh artistic vision and relevance.
This success often stems from prioritizing creative craftsmanship and allowing significant creative freedom. This creative latitude is often found more readily in television series formats due to lower stakes and more episodic storytelling. Shows like The Mandalorian, which expanded the Star Wars universe, and Wednesday have found great success by leveraging established franchises while introducing new narratives and characters. Even the TMNT Mutant Mayhem film was noted for having a lot of passion put into it and being well received. When creative craftsmanship comes first, projects like Top Gun Maverick and the new Dune films can revitalize older IP and give it a new lease of life.
This suggests that the problem isn't the existence of IP itself, but rather the approach to IP, whether it's purely exploitative, focused solely on profit, or genuinely explorative, focused on artistic and thematic innovation. It challenges the simplistic binary of original versus IP as inherently good or bad. It shows that existing IP can serve as a powerful canvas for originality if approached thoughtfully and with genuine artistic intent. It also implies that the industry needs to foster an environment where even IP projects are given the creative latitude to innovate rather than just replicate past successes. It's not just about what they're making, Max, but how they're making it. A truly good reboot isn't just a copy. It's a conversation with the original, bringing something genuinely new to the table, whether it's a fresh perspective, updated themes, or just a deeper dive into the characters.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where nostalgia meets genuine innovation. It proves that IP doesn't automatically mean the death of creativity, but rather a different kind of creative challenge. The road ahead, Hollywood's future story.
So, Max, where do we go from here? Is Hollywood stuck in the cycle, or are there signs of a shift towards a more balanced future for storytelling?
The current trajectory suggests a continued heavy reliance on IP. The cinematic slate for 2025, for example, shows a significant number of reboots lining up. This persistent conservative content strategies is driven by the fact that IP-based television series and films tend to boast higher floors and have an undeniable track record of success at the highest levels.
The box office is still struggling to return to pre-pandemic levels, and the ongoing streaming wars continue to drive the demand for content, likely pushing studios further towards existing IPs as a safer option. Ultimately, audiences have consistently shown they want IP-based content, as evidenced by their money and time spent.
However, there are glimpses of hope for original material in the cinematic slate for 2025. Originality and new-to-screen concepts are still considered critical to Hollywood's sustained success. Content development is inherently cyclical, where the original gambles of today can become the reliable IP franchises of tomorrow. Experts suggest that Hollywood needs to balance exploration and exploitation to avoid a potential implosion.
This brings us to a crucial point about the innovation dilemma in a digitally fragmented market. Hollywood is currently experiencing a painful contraction, characterized by struggling box office numbers and intense competition from the streaming wars. TV operators explicitly state that it's hard to promote new stories in a fragmented media environment. This fragmentation is exacerbated by younger audiences increasingly preferring social media content and feeling a deeper connection to individual creators there, rather than traditional TV shows and movies.
This intensely competitive and fragmented landscape makes studios even more risk-averse. It pushes them towards IP with built-in audiences because it's harder to market brand new ideas to an audience constantly distracted by what's on their phones. The industry finds itself in a classic innovation dilemma. On one hand, it desperately needs new original ideas for long-term creative and economic sustainability. On the other hand, the current market conditions and prevailing audience behavior make investing in those unproven ideas extremely risky and financially challenging in the short term.
And the rapid advancement of AI, while offering potential efficiencies, also threatens to homogenize content further if not carefully managed and regulated. AI will continue to smash IP boundaries and redefine what's possible in creative production. It can now create entire visual worlds on par with legendary directors. Studios will increasingly use AI to reduce production costs and timelines. However, this raises serious questions about authorship, the quality of creative output, and the ethical implications for human artists. Despite the threats, a new creative class is emerging that might leverage AI as a powerful tool. However, this requires firm boundaries like privacy safeguards, consent mechanisms, and fair compensation models to protect human creators.
So the future of Hollywood isn't just about what types of content are produced, but how the industry navigates a rapidly changing media landscape where traditional business models are crumbling. It necessitates a strategic shift towards ambidexterity, a conscious effort to balance the exploitation of existing proven IP with exploring and nurturing genuinely new ideas and emerging talent. Without this balance, the industry risks an irreversible, slow-motion collapse.
This means a call to action for audiences and the industry. Audiences can actively support new stories and voices, and take a chance on that movie with actors and directors you've never heard of. This is crucial for nurturing the next generation of original content.
Hollywood is responsible for stop cannibalizing its past and instead invest in nurturing new talent, championing original ideas, rebuilding trust with its workforce, and spurned audiences. This is presented as essential for the industry's longevity. It's a tightrope walk. Hollywood needs to figure out how to keep the lights on with familiar hits and how to light the path for the next generation of original stories, because that's where the next wave of beloved IP will ultimately come from.
So, Jennifer, after this deep dive, is originality dead in Hollywood?
It's clear that the answer isn't a simple yes or no, Max. The perception that originality is dying is strong, primarily driven by the overwhelming market presence and financial success of reboots, sequels, and other IP-based content. Studios are heavily incentivized to produce these familiar titles due to reduced financial risk, built-in audiences, powerful nostalgia, and global market appeal, especially in the competitive streaming landscape. This business-driven approach has led to concerns about creative stagnation and a stifling of opportunities for new, original voices. The influence of AI and algorithmic content curation further complicates this, potentially pushing the industry deeper into an IP-focused model by making content recycling more efficient and cost-effective.
Yet, as we've explored, originality is far from dead. Critically acclaimed and even financially successful original films, often from independent studios or with more modest budgets, continue to emerge. Furthermore, some reboots demonstrate that existing IPs can be a canvas for genuine innovation when approached with creative craftsmanship and a willingness to offer new perspectives. The true challenge lies in the say-do gap of audience behavior. While many desire original content, their viewing habits often gravitate towards the familiar, reinforcing the studio's risk-averse strategies.
Ultimately, Hollywood faces a significant innovation dilemma. In a fragmented and intensely competitive market, the industry must balance exploiting proven IP for short-term gains and exploring new ideas for long-term creative and economic sustainability. The future of storytelling in Hollywood hinges on a collective effort. For studios to embrace ambidexterity by investing in new talent and original concepts, and for audiences to seek out and support those fresh narratives actively. Only then can the industry ensure longevity and remain a vibrant hub for diverse and imaginative stories.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Pod We Cast. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please like this video and subscribe so you never miss a future conversation. See ya, and I love you all.